Welcome, AdvisorRoadmap Virtual Training Platform members, to another conversation with an expert who can help you get better results. Our guest expert today is Frank C. K.I.T.C.H.E.N. Frank is a certified speaking professional, an award-winning retail manager, a trainer, college educator, performer, and a highly sought-after motivational speaker. Frank's K.I.T.C.H.E.N-inspired programs provide you with proven recipes needed to flip your mindset, fire up your performance, and cook up the results you want. Are you getting that? That's some great wordplay with Frank's last name, K.I.T.C.H.E.N. So Frank is the author of the book 52 Ways to Shine, Discovering Your Value and Leaving an Impact. When he isn't speaking, you can find Frank volunteering as a coach for his children's sports teams and enjoying the outdoors with his family. Welcome, Frank.
Hey, thank you, Bill. It's great to be here today. I'm going to have to hire you to do my intro for future speeches.
Sure. I'd be happy to do that. If you need a little voiceover, that's the least I can do for you, gracing us with your presence today and helping our members be more successful. So we really appreciate having you here today because every financial advisor member of the Advisor Roadmap Virtual Training Platform, not surprisingly, they join with the best of intentions, right? They fork over some of their hard-earned cash because they fully intend to learn our method. It's called values-based financial planning, and the tool is called the Financial Roadmap. And then for some reason they can't explain, some people don't do as much as they intended. They don't make as many calls. They don't schedule as many appointments. They don't conduct as many financial roadmap interviews because perhaps to some degree or another, they have some fears and limiting beliefs that could be holding them back from their full potential. And of course, Frank, that's where you come in. So from your experience, what are your ideas about how to identify, limit, and overcome barriers that could be preventing a person from achieving the results they desire?
Yeah, great question. I mean, obviously today we're going to be speaking about mindset, and generally, when I speak on anything or train or coach, I have to use my name in it for people to understand. And I love to share with people that I feel that your mindset is your mental cookbook. And Bill, if you and I were going to cook a meal right now and we're trying to think of something, we went to a cookbook and there's no recipes, no plan, no ideas, we would think, okay, we can't do this. So for me, when I work with, people like yourself or the people who are listening to this right now, I start to ask them, what are we doing on a day-to-day basis to fill that mental cookbook? Because if that cookbook is empty, then once again, that's going to hold you back. If you have exposure, you've had different experiences, you have mentors or coaches or accountability partners in your life who have shared their recipes with you, when you have that difficult challenge in your life, you say, okay, you know what? Here's a whole list of experiences that have been, think about past that, guess what? They had this barrier in their life and they made their way or pushed their way through that barrier. They were able to, quote, cook up that result that they hungered for. So that's my feeling as far as people, we let these mental barriers become physical barriers. So we have to figure out how to get through those mental barriers first so we can produce those physical results that we desire.
Yeah, your thoughts about having a recipe and having a cookbook are so important. We often refer to our script binder as a playbook of exactly what to do, exactly what to say. I know you created something called the Live Fresh mindset. So just explain that to us.
Right. So the Live Fresh mindset, if we want to go to technical terms, is a performance mindset. And we say performance mindset, similar to what you teach, is there's one thing to have a growth mindset, which is, oh, I'm striving to always grow and get better. But when you think about a performance mindset, you have a particular goal that you are shooting for. So when I say a fresh mindset, it means what are we doing? Are we making the mental commitment to, transform this vision into reality? And while we're doing it, the big driver for many of us is if we try to do it just for ourselves, we don't put the same effort in. But when we recognize that there's other people we can either inspire or empower or motivate to go after their big goal also, it's amazing how much more our performance level, goes. And so it's funny, we don't have to do it for ourselves, but when there's someone else involved, we hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And is F.R.E.S.H, F-R-E.S.H, is there the way you had presented it, there are periods there. I'm assuming that's, and I love acronyms and words like that that can really help cement the idea. So just take us through it.
Yeah, let's go through it. So ultimately, with my last name being K.I.T.C.H.E.N, years ago when I was working in retail as a trainer and a manager, I noticed that my employees weren't performing at their highest level. And I was like, well, what could we do? So I ended up making a newsletter called Fresh from the Kitchen, saying people always enjoy something fresh from a kitchen. And we started to break it down. We're like, oh, wait, these are the 5 pieces as far as crafting a mindset that's allowed me to achieve results, or the people that I've coached and trained over the years to achieve results. So the first piece was the F stands for focus. What are we focused on? If we don't have that goal to shoot for or an aim, then we're not going to go do it. When we're focused, we're able to avoid distractions. So, I mean, if you and I are talking right now, we're driving around the car and you tell me, Frank, I'm hungry. I'll say, what are you hungry for? Because most people say they're hungry. That's a broad piece. When I say, what are you hungry for? You're going to give me the details of exactly what you want, where you want to go. So I'll play along with you right now. I mean, we're hanging out here. We're having our meeting right now. What are you hungry for? What can I take you out for, Bill?
It's so funny. It's morning, but as soon as you said hungry, one of my best friends is flying in from Houston tonight, and our favorite restaurant going back to the 80s was In-N-Out Burger.
Okay.
It still is. I mean, in those days, there weren't In-N-Out Burgers in San Diego. We used to have to drive an hour or more north to get In-N-Out Burgers. So I'm picking him up at the airport, and we're going straight to In-N-Out for double doubles, chocolate shakes, and fries.
Now, and that piece there is if you said I'm hungry, I'm like, hey, there's a Burger King right now. Let's go ahead and stop. And you're going to say, no, I want the double double, the milkshake, and the fries from In-N-Out Burger. Get me the little white hat. We're going to sign on it, wear, take a picture. Now I truly understand what you want, and you will do everything to satisfy that hunger. So for many of us, we're not focused. We just say something in broad terms. Like I had a client one time, like, we want to make more money this year. I'm like, well, what does that mean? Well, we want to make more money. I'm like, well, what does that mean? We want to make more money. I'm like, so if you make $1 more, you're happy. He goes, no, I want to make 10% more. I was like, there it is. There's your focus. So the first piece is we have to live focus. It's not about what we think about. It's not about what we say. We have to live it. So every day we need to live focus. What's the first thing we do in the morning? What's the big focus in our life? Do you start the morning thinking about that, researching it, living it? Or do you just go off and get distracted by what's going on in the world? So when we're focused, we avoid distractions. So that's the F. The next one is resourceful. Now, you just said it to me, Bill. You said, hey, there weren't any In-N-Outs in San Diego, so we had to drive an hour north to go for it. And how did you get there?
We usually drove in our cars.
So you drove in your cars, you met. So what you did was you became resourceful. And many times for us, we always think about all the resources that we don't have versus focusing on what we do have. So when I say resourceful, is you need to figure out what are the ingredients that you need to make this happen. And if you don't have those ingredients, what are the substitutes? Or are there human resources in your life who have access to those resources or that knowledge? So in your case with your friend, you're like, hey, you know what? One of us has got a vehicle. We know where it is. We've mapped it out. Let's go. You're resourceful versus most people like, it's an hour away. Maybe we don't have the car. We start
Well, there
making.
was also to help you with this analogy, there was also traffic. So from San Diego to Orange County, California, Mission Viejo,
Mhm.
we had to think about when do we want to go? Because I say it's an hour drive. You go at the wrong time of day, it's a 2 hour drive.
Right.
And then we had a standing rule to your point about resourcefulness that anytime anybody drove by, like if you were in Los Angeles and you were coming south back to San Diego, I can't tell you how many times the next morning we would have overnight refrigerated double doubles, and we would take all the the lettuce and the onion and the tomato off, put them in the microwave, because a microwave next day double double crushes any other fast food hamburger. So there was a resourcefulness to when we go, how we get there, and a creativity for never missing an opportunity to get a double double.
Yep. So we're in this world right now where we like to blame and complain and take no personal responsibility. But resourceful people focus more on the solution than the problem. So I would love for people to live resourceful. Even your case about the In-N-Out analogy, my best friend lives in Ohio. And every time he comes out to Arizona, he loves going to, In-N-Out. But there's one point where I was going to Ohio and he's like, man, I'd really love to have an In-N-Out burger. So I did what you did. I went there. I knew that they closed at 11. So I showed up at 10:55, bought him 2 double doubles, took it back. We put it in the fridge, wrapped it up in the foil. I brought it on the airplane, went straight to the school. He's a teacher, and he did the whole piece, separated the stuff out, cooked it, put everything back on. And everybody's like, "What do you have?" And he's like, "I had, In-N-Out personally delivered from the West Coast for me today to have for lunch." I mean, that's resourceful. You're laughing right now, but that's the energy a lot of people don't take into their lives where they're resourceful. And that
Well,
resource,
who knew that In-N-Out Burger would become a central part of our conversation today? This it certainly wasn't part of the plan, but now I'm really getting hungry. I had no idea that they would be delivered, and you got them in Arizona a lot longer after we got them in San Diego, and it would not have occurred to me, frankly, that you would be, air transporting double doubles
yeah,
from Arizona to Ohio.
yeah,
So that's resourceful.
that's resourceful. And as I said, if we go back and study throughout history, the people who make something out of their careers, their businesses, or their organizations are the resourceful people. They don't take no for an answer. And as I said, I make everything a kitchen inspired analogy. If someone's cooking something, they're truly hungry. If they can't find the ingredients they have, they don't just say, "Hey, I'm not hungry," and go to sleep. They will either create something else, make their own recipe, their own menu, or like I tell a lot of people on stage, they'll make a peanut butter and jelly. They'll put like a little toothpick on top with a little flag and say, "Hey, guess what?" and make it into a 5-star meal. So we have to just live resourceful. Now, the second part is we have F and the R. The third part's going to be the E. Now, the E is it's the enthusiasm. What excites us? And for many of us, the brain is designed to keep us from stressing ourselves or overworking. And in our world right now, we're always thinking about the work. And guess what? Work does not excite us. I mean, we're going to keep going back to this in and out because we've gone down the rabbit hole now. But I mean, explain to me. So you and your friend, it's your friend coming into town. You haven't hung out for a while. You guys both like in and out. What excited you about in and out? I mean, like, what was the excitement piece? What drove you?
Well, there are a couple of things. So sort of going all the way back to the 80s when I first moved to California and discovered In-N-Out Burger. And I've always been a burger guy anyway. When I was a kid and I was a finicky eater, used to frustrate my parents to no end that I could turn down some meal that my mother would cook. Not that it was bad, but it wasn't my favorite. But in those days, I could eat, as a 5 or 6 year old kid, I could eat a Whopper and a half at Burger King, which before In-N-Out was my favorite. So part of it is just the quality of the meal, but now it's also become memories. So another one of my friends is going to drive down from Orange County, and then he's going to stay at my house. My other friend is flying in tonight. The three of us are going to go. And now it has as much to do with the memories. So when we're sitting at In-N-Out Burger, eating our double doubles, enjoying them, it's more than just enjoying the burger. These are, now relationships I've had for 40 or 50 years.
Yeah.
And so it's more of an experience than it's not just a burger.
Right. And for everybody watching and listening to this, what you're describing is emotion, and humans are emotional creatures. And it's emotion that drives us. And I love to share with everybody, and they can write this one down right now. The emotion of the result must be stronger than the emotion of the work. So for what your group is doing right now, when it works with finances and advising, do we want to sit in that meeting with the client? Do we want to go do the research? Do we want to send the email? No, but if we think about that all the time, we're not going to do the work. But if we think about the emotion of that result, what you're saying, hey, the experience with my friends, that personal time. So we've got financial advisors here. Well, what's the emotion? Oh, maybe the person that you advise is able to send their kid to college. They're able to get that house. They're able to get, financial freedom. They're able to start a business up. We have to think about that piece there to trick our mind. So we have to think about what really excites us. What's the enthusiasm? That's the E. The emotion of that result must be stronger than the emotion of the work, because if we only think about the work, 9 times out of 10, most people aren't excited about the work. So they're not going to go and do it. So we're putting this barrier up mentally, in our lives. So that's the E. The next
Let
piece
me
is,
let me pause right there to take what you've said and really personalize it for our members. One of the things that Frank did beautifully there is he focused on the emotion of the result or the outcome, but notice how it was the result or the outcome for the client.
Mhm.
So there wasn't just the emotion of you getting what you want, you making more money, you creating your ideal life, you building your ideal business. There certainly is emotional payoff there, but by doing the work where the emotions may not be very positive, the doing of the work for the emotional payoff for the client, how does that motivate you to do the work that you need to do to get the results you want? So, Frank, that was really, I know you did that intuitively, and that was very, very well done. Thanks for helping us with that point.
Oh yeah, no problem. Because I mean, we're doing these cooking analogies, but I told people when we're cooking up something, cooks don't find joy in cooking for themselves. They find joy in serving others. So for you and I with our business, I told people my goosebump moments are seeing the success of the people I work with more than my success. I mean, early on in my career, I fell flat on my face several times because I was focused on me. Oh, are they gonna have a sign saying Mr. Kitchen at the airport? Will I have like a suite? Will I get this? What's the check? Didn't put the full effort into it. But then you start to recognize, oh, they started a business. They were able to graduate college. They became a better parent. That's the part that excites me, going like, wow, I had that impact. So as you said, the people that you're working with right now, we're in this world where it's so, focused on ourselves versus having that servant leadership model of, well, hey, when you can put others before yourself, that's when true success happens.
Excellent.
Yep. So we got those three parts. So we're having some fun here. Let's go to the S in fresh. And that just means strong. And when I say strong, it's mentally strong. And for many of us, I shared earlier, is like where our mind goes, our body will follow. And we have to start thinking on a day-to-day basis, what are we consuming? I mean, what are we consuming in the media? What are we consuming in the news? What are we consuming with the people who are around us? We are a reflection of, what we eat, what we consume. Nothing against the news and sports and everything, but there's so many people who will jump up in the morning and they'll claim that I want to be a great financial advisor. And the first thing they do is they're watching the news, they're scanning the internet, they're, and most of that stuff just sparks anger and fear or doubt in yourself. So we have to ask ourselves, how are we starting, our morning? And I joke around with people like when we're cooking something up, I was like, generally what we have to do is we have to have taste testers in our life. So do you have a mentor, a coach, a learning program where it's feeding you the knowledge you need to transform that dream into reality? So if I wake up in the morning, generally I'm trying to listen to a podcast. I'm trying to review my goals for the day. Obviously, I want to take care of my health, so I'll go out for a walk or exercise. But everything that I do is based on keeping a certain mental strength to make me believe that I can do it. And then I meet with my accountability partners once a week to rehash what the goals were, and they're going to hold me accountable for what's going on. We need to have people in our lives who aren't telling us what we want to hear, but what we need to hear. So, what are we doing to keep ourselves mentally strong?
So a couple of action items that you've teed up very, very nicely uh, for all of you. One of the first, well, the first major course inside the Advisor Roadmap Virtual Training Platform is creating a vision for your ideal life, defining your ideal business, and developing your ideal client profile. So especially the vision for your ideal life, that would be a good thing to help you be mentally strong. Much better to review your own written words about your vision for your ideal life to keep you mentally strong than to consume, especially, we encourage people to actually not watch the news, Frank, for exactly the reason you've talked about here. There's very little important information and a whole lot of words that can make you angry, take you off track. So that's one thing that you could do. Another thing that you could do is to actually write down some of your client success stories. So when you complete a financial roadmap and you ask them the question, what's been the value of this financial roadmap? You hear words, whether they become a client or not, you hear them describe the value of the experience that you created for them. The financial roadmap has a positive impact for them, whether they become a client or not. So when you're doing your work, you're not thinking about, I'm doing all this work so I can get some payoff. You're bringing value to the world. And the more you make calls, the more you schedule financial roadmaps, the more you do them, the more impact you're having on the world. And sometimes you're going to get an ideal client and get the payoff. So what can you review personally? What do you think? I want to ask you two questions about that, Frank. The first one is, what do you think about well, this just came to mind. We had another expert. Maybe you met Hillary DeCesar is a new member of NSA. She was a guest expert a couple of months ago. Also
Okay.
has a lot of content on mindset. She happens to live in Boulder. And after we did the interview, I said, "Hey, Hillary, are you a member of NSA?" And she said, "No, tell me about it." And she was at this year's conference. But she talked about having a power song.
Yeah.
And she asked me, kind of like you got me talking about In-N-Out Burger, my power song, which is one of the few songs I can play on the drums, is
Yeah.
Two Tickets to Paradise.
All
And
right.
ever since she had me pick that, what's your power song? Whenever I think of that and I walk by my little electronic drum kit, it only takes about 4 minutes to play that song. So, what do you think about having something like a power song or a particular quote, or what other tactics do you have to get your mindset strong in the morning? And what about getting it back on track to strong when the
Yeah.
inevitable,
Yeah.
day unfolds?
Well, we spend so much time trying to get people to believe in us. We have to get ourselves to believe in ourselves first. So, like I'm looking at it here in my office, I've got a daily affirmation. I mean, it's pretty simple. I tell people, "Hey, you're amazing." If you don't feel amazing, how can you produce amazing results for yourself or for your clients? So, what are you telling yourself, about? So, you said something about vision board, but the vision is one piece. So, but I was like, what are you saying out loud to yourself? So, my board right here says, my full name is like, "Hey," it goes, "You're amazing." And I'm going to look off camera here for a second, but it says my affirmation. It goes, my name is, so I got my full name. It's like, my name is Frank Cornelius Kitchen. And then it goes, I will be $1 million speaker. So will is the big piece there. And when I say $1 million speaker, it's a piece of the word will, but speaker means business. And I'm like, if I'm shooting for that number, then guess what? I'm going to impact more lives. And, I'm not necessarily just chasing for the money, but it's also allowed me to avoid distractions of some things that may not be great business decisions for me. Now, from there, I talk about, hey, he's like, this year, I would love to cook up $250,000 in revenue. So I'm talking about where I want to go, but here's what I have to do this year. There's the marker. And then the big one, it goes, I will work every day to make this result a reality. It takes me less than 30 seconds to do that. But as I'm going through the day, that's just pointing me in the right direction of, okay, what are you doing to hit that number? What are you doing to hold yourself accountable? What am I doing every day? So whether it be showing up here on your interview, because this I'm learning right now. Am I listening to a podcast? Am I reading a book? Am I going to the professional, training? Am I taking care of my health? Because if I'm not alive, I can't do these pieces. It allows me to start my day off with something because we're going to have the distractions, life, kids, family, major, disasters are going to happen. So I want to make sure I start my day off going for that thing that I claim to be is very important. So that's something there. The music, yeah. I mean, before I step on stage or go anywhere, I always tell people, it's like, hey, go listen to music. I mean, there's studies out there. There's one study by Live Strong years ago, and I think Ohio State. It says people are 20% more productive when listening to music, even if it's music they don't like. So yeah, so can you imagine we've got this power song that's going to go have yourself out. So when you said that, my power song will change from day to day, but right now the one that popped in my head for the longest time was Eminem Lose Yourself. And he goes like, you've only got one shot. So I'm going like, yeah, it's like I only got one shot, so I better put the full effort into it. So as you said, all those little pieces there will change, your mindset. And even something I love to do is every week, because I'm in speaking, I love to, and you're part of this process right now. Every week, I love to sit down with one professional speaker, whether I invite them out for a virtual coffee, meet them in person when I'm traveling, but I want to meet somebody new to better understand who they are, but also learn how they got to where they are, because that's just a little bit of learning for me. So I've watched myself grow in my profession by making all these little connections. So when you talked about Hillary there, I mean, that's just a little connection where we can learn back and forth. For you, she came onto your interview series here. But I'm sure during there you learn some aspects that you can tie into your training program. So
Yeah,
for everybody,
absolutely. And you mentioned that you've got some like a little accountability group or accountability buddies. I forget how you refer to
yeah,
that.
taste tester.
Tell us about your how you how the accountability aspect and what you do to help stay accountable to accomplish your outcomes.
Yeah, so the first way to break it down is if we're cooking up a meal right now, let's say I'm trying to make an imitation of In-N-Out Burger, you're going to explain to me exactly what you like, what's on there. So now I know the details. Now, as we're starting to make this, we're going to stop and like, okay, Frank, taste the sauce right here. What do you think? Ah, that's not as sweet. It's too salty. I'm giving you feedback. For many of us, we surround ourselves with people who are not willing to listen and respect their feedback. People who are going to just, we don't want people who are just going to tell us what we want to hear. They're going to say, hey, you know what? You've expressed your goal, and your actions right now are not going to help you hit that goal. Now that hurts, but you recognize that person actually cares about you. So for me, I can list their names right now. I've got my accountability partner, Misty. She's in Chicago. We meet every Friday. We met every Friday for the last 4 years. And today happens to be a Thursday when we're recording this. She was on vacation. So what do? We moved up the meeting to Thursday so we could still meet and talk about goals and a book that we're working on next year. So we go ahead and we talk about not only business, but we also talk about personal because her kids are the same age as my kids. So that's Misty. Then I've got a friend named Joe Fingerhut. Joe Fingerhut, another professional speaker, CSP. We always will meet on Tuesday. And every Tuesday, what we do is we talk about our upcoming schedules. Can we refer leads to each other? There's groups I said are junk food for me as far as clientele. So anytime they pop up, he's there to tell me, Frank, remember, you're saying no to those groups. And when I say no, I say, no, I'm not a good fit for you, but let me refer somebody to you who could be a good fit. So I'm not kicking these people to the curb, but he's there just to remind me of what the goals are. Then I've got my best friend, Scott. We talk every week or we'll text. He's been my best friend for 30 years. So he's there just to remind me of just check up on my life. How's your mom doing? How's your sister? How the kids? So more on that personal side. We talk sports. So there's different parts like that. So there's that person. Then I've got my good friend, Roger Campbell. We probably talk about once a month, but we started the speaking business together. But he understands my speaking style. So he's also my speech coach. So when I'm about to write a speech, so I go there. And then I've got the most important person is my wife. My wife is my number one accountability partner because she will be very honest and upfront with me about watching the people who may be trying to drain too much energy for me. People who don't really care about me or the family. She sees things from an audience perspective. So if I show it to her and she goes, it's fine, it's okay, then I have to go back to the drawing board to write out my speeches or trainings into a point where she's excited. She's like, looks at the books. Oh, I like it when you write it as a workbook. And boom, that book takes off. So those are just 5 people in my life where I am meeting with them on a regular basis to say, here's my goal, here's my dream, here's what I'm focused on right now. Please keep me pointed in that direction. And they're going to tell me things I don't like. They're going to tell me things that I don't want to hear, but I have to be willing and open to listen to that feedback because they're saying it out of care and concern, knowing exactly where I want to go.
Yeah, the whole aspect of accountability, and I think it's interesting how you've broken that up. That's one of the challenges that financial advisors have is they're often working in an environment with a lot of people who don't have big goals. It's easy to get a lot of bad advice and a lot of limiting beliefs and fears, transferred from others. So it sounds like your accountability partners almost create a bit of I'm imagining kind of a force field or a shield
Yeah.
from all the BS.
Yeah, well, that's the piece about mental strength is that mental strength does create that force field. I love how you said that because if we're, they said, I forgot it was, there's a book, it's called How Full is Your Bucket? I'm not sure if you've heard of that book before. Came out probably about 15 years ago, but it was saying on a given day, we have about 10,000 interactions, both positive and, not. And it goes for every negative experience that we get in a day, we need at least 7 positives just to make up for it. So as you said, when we start watching the news, the first 25 minutes of the news is how bad the world is. They don't offer any solutions. And then at the end, there's a puppy or a kitten that got adopted and they try to write it up in a bow, but it's not enough to, you know, wipe out that last 25 minutes. So if we're watching that all the time, it's telling us, hey, the world's going to, end today. The finances are terrible. And so you start to think that versus I love NSA. We're talking about National Speakers Association. There are so many experts in this field where I can go and talk and go, yeah, here's what the media is doing. They're just doing that to sell ads. Here's what's really going on. Here's a better way to go and invest. Here's a better way to grow your business. Here's a better way to take care of your time. Here's a great software piece. And when you thought that these things didn't exist, you find out that they're there. So as financial advisors, that's what we have to do. We have to have ourselves around like at least 2 types of groups. One is we got to be around some other financial advisors because only so many people are going to understand what you're going through. So when you have those bad days or, good days, they're there to kind of keep you balanced, of which ideally, you want to have maybe some new people coming in because they're going to give you that energy, but you need to have some experienced people too, people who have that same dream and goal as you so you can learn from them. And then outside of that, that's the professional side. We also need to have some people on the personal side too, because those personal people see your life in a different perspective. Are you making enough time for your significant other, for your kids? Are you taking some downtime for yourself? What are you doing just to turn the brain off for a little bit? But the same thing is all these people, you need to surround yourself by driven people, people who are looking to cook something up. I always tell people like, are you hanging out with, producers or consumers? I was like, and many of us have been trained right now to be consumers. We're waiting for somebody else. We're waiting for being non-passive. You have to ask yourself, is your accountability group producers, people who are working to make something happen, people who are pointing out solutions, people who are willing to put in the work, or are the people like, it's just another day, ho hum, this is what it happens is, it is what it is. If you're spending more time around those people, then don't expect great results.
Yeah, those are such good points. We actually organize accountability groups for our members almost exactly the way you described. It's so that you're around other financial advisors who are producers who have similar big goals. There's an accountability element. Did you do what you said you were going to do? And if you did, we celebrate. And if you didn't, we don't beat you up. We just, okay, let's set a new goal. How can we do better next week? How can you do better? How can I do better? So that you have that, you're getting that. I know we're on the, I think we're still on the S in F.R.E.S.H of strength. This is how you can be strong. So you're more consistently doing the work to not only achieve your own goals, but to have the impact that you really want to have.
Yeah.
So let's move on to
Yeah,
the
we got one
the
more letter.
H.
Yeah. The H is honest, where we have to live honest, but we have to live honest with ourselves. And it builds off the S. Because you said if we have this accountability group and you talked about the force field, then when we do have those bad days, because we are going to have it, then we can remind ourselves about the successes or the people like, hey, guess what? It happens. I mean, I had a person one time who goes, hey, Frank, I don't want you as a speaker. I don't want to book you. Don't want to work with you. No one's ever going to remember you. And it's giving me all this negative on the phone. But once I hung up and the conversation was over, I reached out to my accountability group and they go, people say that all the time, but remember, you just booked 2 jobs last week and you just had that interview and you just wrote that book. And they're there to remind you of what's going on. They're being honest with you. So for all of us, I know you talked about having the vision board, but I always tell people that's only one part of the process. I love for you to have the vision board to see where you want to go. But there's also a point when we say honest, we have to have a reflection piece of we have to reflect, not to compare ourselves against other people, but to reflect on something great that we've done in our lives. So I always tell people too, it's like you need a success board. What are some of the past successes that you have? Because we're in this world, it's always telling us what we're not good at and what we can't do. And if you absorb that all the time, then you're not going to be able to produce results. But when you can say, okay, here's my vision, and I do an exercise where we have people to do the vision board, but the other part is before we get to the vision part is I'm like, well, what are you great at? And as you said, this could be pictures of past clients that the people listening to this right now, where it's like, okay, if they can see those faces, that's a past success to build on. If it's a case where they've built a successful business and maybe hit a number barrier, maybe it's a dinner where there's a picture like, oh, we went on this dinner when we celebrated 5 years in service or 10 years in service. Put that up. So when you have those down days, you have this thing to look at and it's like, oh, wait, let me be honest with myself. This is just, the one day, there's always going to be days where I think that I suck, I'm not good. But honestly, I've been doing this for X amount of years. I've got these people in my life to support me. Here's some past successes that I have. Like I joke with people, I'm like, I've got a picture where it shows me driving stick shift. I'm like, if I can drive stick shift without stalling the car out in Pennsylvania when I grew up, I can do anything. And it just reminds you of, that piece. So the ultimate part is you have to ask yourself, honestly, are you helping the process or are you hurting the process? Are are you in the way? Do we need to get you out of the way mentally to start going like, okay, you can do this. It's possible. It's not going to be easy because I always show people nothing is easy, but anything is possible. And in order to do that, we have to ask questions. We have to be willing to ask for help. And we have to understand it takes time. So if I'm watching this video right now, like, oh my God, I want to be like Bill. I'm not like Bill. Bill has X amount of years of experience in this. And if you go really ask the question, Bill's going to say, yeah, my first year didn't happen. So you understand, oh, I'm in my first year. Let me be honest with myself. Then I can ask Bill, what's the blueprint? What's the training programs? What do I need to go and do? And you're going to honestly answer me. It's like, hey, guess what? It's not going to happen overnight. But if you follow these step-by-step process, you can get there. So that's the honest. So we're focused, we're resourceful, we're enthusiastic, we're strong, and we're honest. And we're not thinking about those things. We're not talking about them. We're living them on a day-to-day basis.
That is so good. So good, so memorable. 5 excellent points with a lot of explanation. I love the recipe. I love the alignment with your last name is Kitchen and it's recipe and cooking. Very well done, very memorable, very relevant to our members. Now, so a little bit off topic, exactly, but still relevant for you. One of the things that we teach financial advisors to do, and I started doing this when I was a young financial advisor in the 80s, it's an idea that I got from athletes. In fact, I lifted this idea specifically from Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn was a very famous baseball player, one of the best hitters of all time, played for the San Diego Padres. And there was an article in the San Diego Union Tribune in the mid 80s when I was a young financial advisor. And it literally explained how Tony Gwynn, at his own expense, put at that point, a fairly complicated 3-camera video system in so that he could video record himself hitting against a variety of pitchers. Yeah. So he could examine what he was doing. And I didn't set up an elaborate video system, but I thought, well, I can at least audio record. So we
Yeah.
teach financial advisors to audio record their conversations with prospects and clients and listen to those. And I know you're a brilliant communicator. I'd imagine you have some experience with actually watching yourself on video or audio. So talk to us a little bit about your experience doing that, what some of the lessons are, and if you have any advice for others who are examining the reality of what they're doing in order to improve.
Yeah, I love that piece as you said, and I'm thinking about Tony Gwynn. So for people who don't know, go Google him. But I mean, as you said, people see the success side of things, but they don't understand all the work. I'm like, anybody who's successful means they've put in thousands of hours of work behind the scenes to make it happen. And if anybody, I forgot what the fact was about Tony Gwynn, but they're going, even if he went like I think 0 for a season with his batting, for a season, they go, he would have been over 300. I mean, so that's just crazy how much work and effort that he put in. But yeah, for me, there's the couple things I share with people. Like, there's people who are getting ready for a pitch or a sales talk or talking and go, hey, you know what? Humans, we're in the car, we're traveling around. Listen, like, yeah, it's like go audio record yourself, just like we like to listen to music and songs. So I was like, if you audio record your talk, your speech, your pitch, and you just keep listening to it over and over again, then guess what? It becomes part of you. So it doesn't become this thing that you have to memorize because there's songs or movies where once we listen to them over and over again, it becomes a part of us. And I think that's the big challenge for so many people, especially probably these new financial advisors, is like, I don't know how to talk and say this. Well, you probably got to do it. I told people for a good speech, you have to do it at least 10 times. I'm like, for a great speech, about 100 times. So, hey, go record this piece out, read it, and then just listen to it in the car as you're walking. And probably by a good week, if you're listening to it over and over again, it's going to allow you to be able to communicate that because you've heard it over and over. The other one is this is what I do with my business. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback. We're so worried about what people are going to say. It's going to say something bad. When I'm working with a client, like, hey, it's like, I want to have 2 pre-planning meetings with you. I was like, but I also want to schedule feedback from you. So we'll do a wrap-up meeting after I've worked with you. And I'm like, what did you like? What could I do to improve? That's what Tony Gwynn was doing. Hey, even though I'm this Hall of Fame, pace batter, and I'm winning all these MVPs and batting titles, he set up the 3-camera system to get better. So for us who are listening and watching this right now, what are you doing to constantly improve? So when I talked about performance mindsets, like you have to keep pushing that goal up. We'll go back to the kitchen analogy. Even when you cook something really good the first time, you come back to see if you can replicate it and do it again, or you refine it to see if you can make it any better. So for us, feedback is the biggest piece. So when you have your clients and you help them achieve some form of success, because you will do that after going through this program with Bill, go back and talk to them and ask them, what did you like? What could I do to improve? And now they're going to give you, quote, the recipe, or I told people the answers to the test. I mean, we should perform well if people are giving us the answers to the test pre-meeting and post-meeting. So that's the 2 pieces I would share there is go ahead and record yourself, listen to it over and over again, but also be willing to ask for feedback. Some of us are afraid to go and ask for, once again, the honest piece, help. But the reason I'm here with you today is people kept providing feedback. Frank, I like it when you use this terminology. I like it when you say it this way. I love when you use your hands. I love that little. So I start putting more of that into my product and services. And everybody's like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And like, how did you get here? I'm like, 80% of what you see is feedback from the people that I work with.
And what about, you and I have done this a lot because we are at some point in our lives, we decided to become professional speakers. I adopted this when I was still a financial advisor because I thought, well, the equivalent of me being at bat, sort of Tony Gwynn metaphor, is when I am talking to somebody on the phone to schedule a meeting. That's like being at bat. When I
Yeah.
actually have the meeting, and to your point, I'm going to tie this right into honest, right? So the H in fresh is honest. The only way to really know what you sound like and what you're saying when you're in a meeting, your memory is not accurate. And then the second thing that I know a lot of people experience, if there's a number one reason why financial advisors and probably all human beings resist the idea of recording and listening to it, it's just painful. Most of us tend to kind of fixate on what we did wrong
Yeah.
rather than celebrate what we did right. So what input would you have for someone when they're actually listening to the recording
Yeah.
of themselves to not only improve, but to kind of get over the fact that listening to recordings is uncomfortable?
The first thing is when you're going into it, you have to understand we're not shooting for perfection. Too many people are trying to be perfect. So when they go into this recording and listen to it, oh, that was off, that was off, that was off. It's easy to pop that out. Maybe we should just write down, it's like, okay, what went well? What can I improve? I always tell people there is what went well and where can we improve versus what you did right and what you did wrong. So once again, back to the mindset piece. Okay, where can I improve? So as you listen into it, what's the plan that you're going in when we said honest for this recording? Why are you doing the recording? Are you there to pull yourself down or are you there to get better? So what's the focus? So we can actually go back to the recipe. Okay, so my focus is I want to get better. So number one is I've got to listen to it. So we go there. Now, as we're listening to it, we're going to take some notes from an outside angle. Become a first client. Okay, what type of, because we always tell everybody else what they do right or wrong. Do that for yourself. So the resourceful piece is like, okay, I did that good. I did that good. I did that good. Oh, I could get better at this. And we have to understand we're never going to be perfect. So it's never, so the first time it's like, okay, it's going to be gradual improvement. Oh man, what got me excited? Hey, you know what? I still closed the deal from that recording. So you go there. Okay, what I have to stay strong mentally. Okay, it's like, well, I've got more positives than negatives. So let's just go ahead. Let me go back now and re-listen to the course here. Let me go see if I can get a one-on-one conversation or some mentoring. So like, let me let them listen to the recording. What's the better way to address this? And that's the honest piece, which comes is, are you willing to ask questions? Are you willing to always seek knowledge? And that's why we're doing this recording. That's why we're listening to this recording is going, I'm doing this to get better. Am I going to like it? Probably not. But there's a lot of things we do in this world that we don't like that actually get us better. And too many of us are getting in our own way because we're thinking more about what we want versus the result that we want. And too many people are choosing to, obviously you deal with people with finances. I want to make more money. Okay, well, you need to stop doing these things here and start doing that. I don't want to go do that. Well, is it more important to do what you want or to do what you need to do to get the results that you want? Which one is more important for you? So when we go back to this recording piece, let's take on the whole financial advisor mindset is, I don't like recordings. I don't want to go do it. But you just came here and told Bill that you want to get better. Which one is more important to you? Now, when I go and do this recording, let me go into this recording with a plan. I'm going to listen to it right now, just all the way through. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to go back and listen to it again and really start to critique it, just to say, okay, what are the good points? So I can build off of that. What are some areas where I can improve? Don't put yourself down. And then number three is, okay, what's the plan to address those areas for improvement? And that's going to be either coaching, coursework, mentorship. And then the biggest one after that is, let's go do it again. It's going to be repetition. The first time is never going to be great. People ask me, it's like, oh my God, you're so great on stage. It's 30 years of constant improvement. And there's still points where I mess up and I have to go back and watch the tape. Like, oh my God, the slide has a typo on it. Let me go fix that one. The contracts, I've had contracts with typos in it. And like one time it was missing a zero, but they still paid me the right thing, of which I understand is like, okay, I'm never going to be perfect, but I can always give my best and I can always work to be my best. So I hope that answers the question.
Frank, this is really good. I want to, before we wrap up here today, I have a conversation about your book, 52 Ways to Shine, Discovering Your Value and Leaving an Impact. Just give us a little perspective about sort of the essence of what that book is about and tell our members how they can, the best way for them to get their hands on that book.
Yeah, and it really aligns with what we're talking about today. But the short story is there's another speaker. His name is Roger Campbell. I told you part of my accountability team. And we had a client who reached out and was like, hey, you know what? Our team, our people feel less than, less than they are, they don't feel valuable. And Roger and I have been doing a speech called Are You a Bad Apple? And the case was bad means what are you doing to build and develop your skills, or what are you doing to have belief, action, determination in, the results that you want? And we were comparing people to apples, saying apples have value, apples have impact. But to recognize that value and impact, we have to put them in the right position. Some apples are good for eating raw. Some apples are good for making applesauce, pies, desserts, medicine, apple martinis. And people will laugh at that, but it's like we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people. We have to discover what our true value is. And when we discover what our value is, then we're able to leave a long-lasting impact, not only on our lives, but the lives of others. Now, to go deeper into the book was someone's like, can you write a book? So we're like, okay, let's take all of our favorite quotes from our speeches and we'll put them into one book. And Roger, because he's a PK, a preacher's kid, his father was a pastor and he's from Jamaica, so he's got the accent. And every day we went to his house, he'd always give us this little book called Daily Bread. And Daily Bread was one side is a is area of a quote or inspiration on what you can do to go get better, and the other side was questions of reflection. So we looked like, hey, couldn't we write our book that way? Let's take our favorite quotes, explain what the quote means, and then ask some deep, thoughtful questions to help people better understand their value and the impact that they can have in their lives or the lives of others. Now, the beauty of this book was we wrote it years ago and we put it out as a workbook for an event because a client asked for it, and then we moved on. But then when the days of self-publishing started to advance around 2019, 2020, we went back to reinvestigate. Like, hey, Roger, we can cut out the middleman and produce ourselves. So we went back to rewrite the book, and the book actually came out a month before COVID. And during COVID, I explained to people there's a lot of times where people felt less than valued with their employers because they're just kind of left out there in an island. So we released the book, and then the book just started to take off, and people were like, oh, we're using this for our team meetings. We're using this to help kids and teens who are going through, substance abuse areas. We have new employees, and we need to better understand them so we can value them. So the book, quite simply, especially for everybody listening right now, is there are 52 weeks in the year. And we break the book down into the point of there's belief, there's action, there's determination. So the first part of the book are going to be comments and questions about what are you doing to believe in yourself? Because if you don't believe in yourself, we can't do all the other parts. So people call it a soft skill, but it's an important skill. If you don't believe it, we can't teach anything else. So that's that part. And then the middle of the part of the book is talking about actions. What actions can we take to make sure that we're understanding how valuable and impactful that we can be? And then the back part of the book, back third, is determination of saying, hey, guess what? There are going to be obstacles in our life and challenges. What do we do to get through those obstacles and challenges? So the whole piece for the book is it's either individual or for a team is number one, understand that you're valuable. Number two, understand that you can make a long-lasting impact, not just on yourself, but others. And then here are 52 ways, one a week, that you can focus on to get to that end result.
I like it. I love the way you break things down. Everything's got an acronym, great analogies, 52 weeks in the year. So every week you can work on something and connect the dots. So Frank, we really appreciate you being here as a guest on our expert interview to help our advisors more consistently implement what they're learning, get past their fears and limiting beliefs so they can not only accomplish their own outcome of building an ideal life and creating an ideal life rather and building an ideal business, but the impact that they have on other people as they're doing this, both the people who become clients and the people who do not become clients. We really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, and that's what we're just talking about with that book. It's like, what are we doing to give ourselves and others an opportunity to shine? Because when we feel that we're shining, we feel valuable and we have that impact. And as you said, you asked the question for anybody who wants to get that book, it's out there on Amazon. We actually, at the time of this recording, actually the book now is only $10 because we want to get it into as many hands as possible. We want to make a lasting impact. So just go check it out on Amazon. Just look up 52 Ways to Shine and you should find the book. Or if you just go to my website, frankkitchen.com, there's a link that says books. Click on there. You'll see some other books that I've produced, but you'll see the link to 52 Ways to Shine.
Thank you so much for that, Frank. We appreciate you. Well, Advisor Roadmap members, financial advisors working toward creating your ideal life and building an ideal business, there you have it. Tangible ideas and takeaways to increase the probability that you actually do the work to achieve the goals you want to have and have a big impact. Make it a great day.